Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Ball Over Passion. I'm your boy at George V _ AFC. Of course, we've got the main men, Curran, Chris. How you boys doing? You good?
All
Yeah,
good, buddy. All good.
I'm
You
good.
know what? It's a good weekend and it's a good day when the Arsenal wins and look at your rivals and everybody is struggling. No, that's being facetious. There's basically our favorite team that struggled today. But you know what? I'm excited because this is a Crystal Palace review. There's a lot of interesting things to talk about, guys. Look, people that think I have an agenda, you haven't seen agenda yet. No, I'm kidding. But there's some things to talk about. There was some good, there was some bad, there was some ugly. But I'm ready to get into it. Guys, I think first things first, when you take a look at the team lineup, what was your initial reactions? I'm hearing the sound coming out of my headphones about Selhurst Park, and I'm not going to lie to you. There's a bit part of me that's thinking we have to be on it from the jump. I love the lineup, but I'm taking a look and I'm seeing how they lined up. It was very similar to how we predicted, and there were some key battles that I'm like, I hope we see match up. But I'm going to go to Curran first. What was your first impressions on the lineup, both sides?
I don't think there was anything unexpected. I mean, we didn't expect many changes. I mean, we can bring it up if you want, but the main thing for me was to see that 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 we had both Willie with basically Saliba and Ben White on the pitch. I didn't want to see any different changes in the back line. I wanted to see a proper debut for Saliba. So it was it was a bit disappointing not to see Vieira and Tomiyasu not on the bench, but they're still coming back. But yeah, nothing really too surprising. On the Crystal Palace side, the only thing was surprising was Klein. I reckon. I think seeing Klein wasn't a something I expected. I expected Ward to play there, or maybe even Richards. I didn't expect him, but you never know. But I'd expect Richards over Klein. I didn't really get the Klein situation, but yeah. Well, anyway, hello to the comments. Hope everyone's doing well, and we'll continue with this discussion on the lineup. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I'll quickly show it, and I'll let Chris talk his stuff. But yeah, essentially, Klein was the only issue at right back for us there. But we were set up very similar how we were, except 8 was definitely Odegaard. And no, that's sorry, it's not agenda. We just forgot it last time. But these are basically who lined up. Chris, any surprises for you in terms of the lineup? Like, was there any issues in terms of maybe having IU up top and somebody else pull wide, maybe Eze, or was it basically as we thought, kind of in the preview with who we
Well,
saw?
yeah, it was as we thought, but as I said to everybody that as the lineup came out, I was like, oh, we're lucky that Elise is injured
Yeah,
and that Marco Mabera wasn't starting. We were lucky that the 1v1 threat would be limited. And even if IU did get past him, which we saw, he wouldn't. His final pass wouldn't be good enough. And then with Ward and Klein, I think just Klein, he wanted to add as much PMP as he could. And everyone knew going into this game, our left to be important.
mm-hmm.
And Martinelli was the outlet the whole preseason. So knowing that, he had to try and match him as much as he could. He couldn't, but that was his best bet, I think. And then everyone else we knew was going to start. Tierney isn't fully fit. Vieira isn't fully fit. Tommy, Smith Rowe. So yeah, everyone we knew who was going to start. So no surprises from Arsenal, but with Palace, I would have not played IU.
Well, I mean, I think Patrick Vieira, like you said, is kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, especially with who's out there in terms of who he can put. And ironically, Andre Ayew had some good moments himself.
He
And
did.
he had a very good matchup with Zinchenko that tired towards the end of the half of the second. I mean, it was pretty quite clear, that there was a mismatch developing there, ironically. But when I have a look, let's talk first half, second half, and then maybe some heroes and villains in a sense. But firstly, first half, that start, the first 35 minutes, just in general, was incredible. And there was a lot of very key performers. For me, best performers of the day, really, were Saliba, Granit Xhaka, Jesus. Were my top 3 players of the entire game. But really, that first half, those 3 for me shone the most, particularly between the lines, our speed of play. Of course, Aaron Ramsdale is, back to his best in that case. We saw his passing range, the clip balls wide. And of course, there's that theory of Ben White versus Zaha, the big battle that everyone was fearful for. I think defensively, he won that battle. On the ball, a little bit less sure of himself. But I'm going to go first to Curran. In terms of what you saw in the first 35 minutes, what was your favorite aspect of the game that you felt we did really well in? Sorry, you're muted.
Hello,
There
hello.
we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so basically, I think how we controlled the game was excellent, just in terms of not possession, but controlled possession, as in not just having the ball, but being purposeful with it. It was very much a case where you look at how the game was going, and you look at how we dominated possession in specific areas as well. We weren't just holding the ball to hold it; we were being purposeful and playing with intent. Obviously, the rotations were brilliant. That left hand side was really good. Special shout obviously to Xhaka as well. I think he had in that first 30 minutes was amazing. So yeah, don't worry, Blaze. We're going to get into the second half and why we lost control. Don't worry, we're going to get into it. But in terms of the first half, and especially that first 30 minutes, I just think the way we were able to properly control the ball as well as play with intent, because it's all well and good having possession, but if you don't do anything with the possession, then there's not much point of it. We were looking to be on the front foot, looking to hit them where on that left hand side, get the ball in the box, and see how we could progress. So that was most important to me.
Yeah, and I think when you're having a look at it, what was really kind of clear was when we have a Gabriel Jesus that was on fire in that first 20 minutes. He's a guy that really led us from the front and from the back as well. We had Saliba sweeping up to excellent effect. I think that whole back line. I just remember typing in group chats. It is just so authoritative. I think that what we did find was there was a lot of people willing to make the runs, and the biggest thing was we were stretching the pitch. One of my biggest critiques in general, as we started to lose, and we'll get into that. Of course, Blaze, don't worry, we will get into why we lost control. But one of the big things that we did well was that we were able to stretch the pitch really good in terms of Aaron Ramsdale's quick early out balls. I felt that there was a lot of very good intricate play in our build up. We really built up quite well throughout the entire half, in terms of even when we struggled, we built up very well. It was really in the middle third that we seemed to play a little bit of hot potato. I think Saka started off slowly, but really grew into the game. He was really dangerous on rewatching. And, the biggest thing for me was that Martinelli was top in possession. That guy was doing a lot of really good things with the ball. But, of course, we have to go to that early chance where really it's kind of inexcusable for me. I'll be honest with you. I think Martinelli of old doesn't really make that mistake. I think he's become a little bit indecisive in some of the key moments, being wide. And I think coming back inside, he'll develop some of those instincts a little bit more again. But it was a pretty poor miss. Chris, for you, how was the start of the half, but also that miss, which really came quite early? I was really kind of annoyed that we didn't get a goal right away. We really need to make that pressure count. And for me, we could have very early. And I think there is something to be said if I'm going to critique, Martin for some of the things that we will get into later. I think you have to critique Martinelli for having that open slot. It's a very simple right-footed finish for me. I think he just overthinks it, uses his left. But what do you make of the start, and what do you make of that early Martinelli chance?
It was a great start. We had to start like that because last time we started slow and
Yeah.
they got in control of the game. They overran us, so we had to start quick, make a imprint on the game. Obviously, we scored with the corner, but Martinelli shouldn't have missed it. And we were saying it like old Martinelli, like versus Liverpool, for example, the ball bounces, roof of the net, 1-0. But now he keeps doing it with his left. He took too many touches, no, too many steps, sorry, and then he missed it. But apart from that, I think Jesus was great. That was probably the worst I've seen Mark Guehi in a long time. He was not good. Anderson was very good, surprisingly, and he won all his duels aerially as well, which was
I
surprising.
feel like it was very good on the ball. I think that's what was getting people so up in arms. Like he was so good with the switches and finding those long balls, but people weren't. As you were, sorry, I know you interrupted you, but you were saying how good he was with his own duels off the ball in terms of getting the ball back and repossessing, getting the ball back. I think that went so under the radar, if you, especially on rewatch. I don't know if this guy's happened to either of you guys, but I feel like when you're watching it again, you can actually realize, holy crap, he was actually winning many more duels than I thought he did. I don't know. I wanted to ask you guys that.
He did. He won 100% of his aerial duels, but with like Anderson, it was weird because obviously Palace consistently switch ball from right to left, switch ball right to left. As the game went on, he realized the 1v1 with Zinchenko and Ayu was very strong, so they started switching it to the right. And obviously Zaha was crowded. Saka was a lot more defensive. Zaha was crowded and we did well there. But yeah, I think first half we weren't clinical as I thought we wouldn't be going into the game. We should have scored maybe 2 or 3 or in their box all the time. But yeah,
Really quickly, I mean, just there's the Martinelli chance, and Zinchenko finds himself after some great work by Granit Xhaka, kind of in literally the 7th minute, a couple minutes after that,
yeah.
in space. He shoots straight at the keeper. I think he could do better himself there, get it on target, work the keeper a little bit more. These aren't like glaring obvious things, but these just kind of show you that we did everything but the final action. And I was worried, at the start, is this one of those days? But we just kept on them. It was very, very intense pressure from above and behind. And, William Saliba was really important in terms of making sure that we were able to break out really well. Countless times when Zaha was able to get the better of Ben White, he was met with William Saliba. And I just think we were very compact as a defensive unit in that first half. It was really, really good work. I think one of the big things that we talked about in our preview is kind of this little setup here in terms of how William Saliba or even Thomas Partey, but early outballs wide would be the significant part that we can exploit. Those 1v1 battles for Martinelli and Saka are going to be really, really important. And I felt as though we did that very well early on. That was a big part of us providing really good width. But then Granit Xhaka was really, really good between the lines in that first half, which is what really allowed us to kind of get going in terms of the midfield. I felt that Thomas Partey was great defensively, not amazing offensively, but some of that for me is in terms of the options that he had ahead of him that weren't doing very well. But in that opening 35 minutes, I think what the team did excellently was making sure to hold the width. They were hitting those 1v1 channels very, very early. And I felt that Jesus was really at the heart of a lot of what we did very well offensively because he was pulling defenders wide and Mark Wahey was having trouble pulling wide with Saka, that channel. It was very clear that, for a guy that, by the way, Mark Wahey is one of the best 1v1 dual defenders in the league. And to see him struggle like that, I felt was a really good omen for us kind of going further on. But as I kind of went through the half, I think we had a little bit of a debate here off channel, and we'll put it to the viewers here. And this is where I'll put kind of Curran what he believes he saw. So, Curran, I'll let you describe what you think that you saw here from us early on between the 12th and the 18th minute.
So basically, as the game progressed, and what we were trying to do is, I feel like the whole point of this, what we're showing on screen, was to get Martinelli closer to goal, play him a bit more inside, and have him and Jesus basically lead the off-ball press. I think this was all to do with getting Martinelli into areas where he's much more comfortable, closer to goal, getting him into positions around zone 14 or in that area just outside the box. And what happened here was basically. These are roll numbers, by the way, guys. These aren't the actual numbers, but Zinchenko is the 3 here, and he would come inside and basically push the other 2 up. And what this kind of did, it kind of made Erdegaard a bit more. I wouldn't say out of the game, but just a bit like I felt like he got lost in the game, especially as the half progressed. But what this did was it was able to allow Partey and Xhaka to really dictate play a bit higher up the pitch. I know the guys said don't think there was a tactic, but I do. I think this was something that I think Mikel might want to try. If you're a Football Manager head, an asymmetric 3-4-3 or something like this. But for me, I felt like there was definitely times where, and we'll show the rotation on the left-hand side, where you had Xhaka, Martinelli, and Zinchenko all interacting like we said they would a bit pre-game. But I wanted to get the guys' thoughts on this because for me, I think that there is a capability to have I think the main thing for me is to have the capability to have more midfielders on the pitch where you can actually dictate how the midfield battle goes, and having Zinchenko coming inside a bit more and not just being that inverted fullback but being the base. It kind of pushes our eights on, and Partey and Xhaka are much more effective as you get higher up the pitch. So I wanted the guys to think, and the main thing for me. Oh, sorry, and last thing is um, Erdegaard in this kind of got lost, and yeah,
Well, we'll talk about the Odegaard effect. I think really quickly on here, I didn't see this. I saw there was at times early in the first half that he came into the center, but it was very short-lived. It wasn't something that he stayed. I felt that Partey anchored quite consistently. I felt if anything, Odegaard tried to drift right, and Granit Xhaka was a lot higher than Odegaard, which is actually maybe part of the problem why we didn't really control things. I felt that this is probably something as a little bit of a debate here on Bop, so you know that we do have some different opinions. This is what I saw a lot more. When you talk about getting Martinelli inside, I think it was far more the rotation of having Zinchenko wide and offering that threat and that thrust, which dropped Granit deeper as opposed to Zinchenko coming inside. I felt really what you saw is this going much more into the game, and I felt that this was lost in the second half, and particularly the last 5 minutes of the first half, which is why we ended up struggling. We didn't carry the same width. We didn't carry the same technical security inside because our number 10, I think, drifted a little bit more. And the few times that he was at the top of the box, he didn't release quick enough. I think it was a big issue when we have a look at what stopped kind of that dominance in the first half. I think it was because we didn't connect enough offensively and we left Saka on an island just a little bit too much because Odegaard was drifting. At the end of the first half, he was the player with the least touches in our team. And that's saying something with Ramsdale. I think that's really, really quite poor. So for me, that was the biggest issue after the first 35 minutes where we saw kind of a drop in play. And I don't agree with this idea on rewatch that, Aaron Ramsdale was the cause of it. I think he offered a pressing situation. But ultimately, what happened is that I think the people in the middle of the park didn't hold on to the ball and didn't take care of it long
yeah.
enough, which is really what caused that kind of hot potato and us not being able to complete duels. And then people kind of slowly stopped running. But I want to ask Chris your opinion, kind of on the diamond versus the rotation in the far left. What are you in?
Let me
Yeah,
just quickly let me be clear. It wasn't that we weren't doing the rotation on the left. We were quite clearly doing the rotation on the left. I think we were doing both. I think as basically Zinchenko was running into out, and you were having Zinchenko on the overlap. Sorry, Chris. I just wanted to clarify that. No.
yeah, I didn't see the diamond too much. I don't think because obviously Erdegaard was hiding a bit, which caused Partey to play the ball forward enough. Xhaka was a lot higher than him, which annoyed me because obviously Xhaka did a decent job off the ball and on the ball. He was very good actually, but he shouldn't have to be on the right anywhere near as much as he was because Odegaard wasn't stepping up the pitch. It hurt us as the game progressed. At the start, we were just too intense for Palace,
Yeah.
and we did get the goal early, which was good. We should have got more, but we did get the goal. And the difference between what we did then and what we might not do in other away games is get the goal because at times we weren't clinical. And if you're going to hide off the ball like that and play with 10 men, we're going to be killed. So I do think, just on the point, yeah, I didn't see the diamond too much because Erdegaard didn't step and force Partey to step higher. So Partey was in the middle six row most of the game, like 90%.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the things that I had a feeling, I told you guys in the preview, set piece, set piece, set piece. I don't know why, but I have a feeling. And lo and behold, our first goal came from a set piece where I think we had some really dangerous situations beforehand, namely the Zinchenko and the Martinelli chance were two top chances that we did squander. But Martinelli gets his goal in his endeavor, which really kind of was due, to be honest. He had a great game on the ball himself. But, that set piece, guys, it's a beautiful set piece routine. Once again, Sky Sports just couldn't help themselves but asking Mikel about whether or not Yover was involved. Of course he is. He's your free kick coach. But anyways, I think it was a phenomenal rotation, something a little bit different than what we've seen. Everybody crashed near post, kind of like what we did last year. But I don't know if you guys noticed, but clearly this was more of a chance to go deeper. And we really hit the back post for then a redirect. I know at the beginning of last season, we really focused on near post runs, but we seem to vary it up this season, go back post for a knockdown across the face of goal. And I think it did excellently. Zinchenko was phenomenal in terms of getting his stuff done, making sure to put a powerful header into the mix zone, and Martinelli is free. I thought it was poor marking by Palace. But quickly, Curran, what did you make of the first goal and the set piece? It's kind of ironic that our best part of last season is basically our first goal this season. But what did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what was so good to see that it wasn't all automatic. It was quite clearly there was a routine that was clearly in play, but in terms of finding the space and looking to exploit where the space was, I don't think that if you look at that routine, I don't think Palace. I don't think Yova went before me like, okay, Palace leave a lot of space far side, and Zinchenko you pull off, and that's where it will be. I think on the pitch they figured it out, and they figured out where the space was and adjusted to it. But there was quite clearly it was a combination of football intelligence and an automatism. Like it was very much like a meld of the two, which I found to be the most important thing because it means that you're not just having a coach sort of dictate, okay, you go here, you go here, you go here. It means that the players are working out where to find the space, and that was very key to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I thought it was just a great routine. I don't know, Chris, if you had anything that you wanted to add in terms of the routine. Again, I thought it was interesting that we chose back post to attack because it was very clear last season we had a focus on attacking near post and having runners start at the penalty spot and then peeling near post. But it was very, very clear we had most of that, but we had a decoy and there was a lot of deep corners. I noticed even throughout the game that they attacked back post quite a bit for knockdowns across the face of goal. But for you, thoughts on the set piece and in general set pieces maybe as a whole in the game?
I think it was very good because of the way Palace defended it. Because Zinchenko started alone from the edge of the box, and you've had like 10 yards, a 10 yard circle, ran in, easy header, and he could pick wherever he wanted the ball to land. But because Palace defended it, some players man to man, it was a mix of man to man and zonal. They left such a big zone that regardless of who's heading it, it could have been Martinez and he would have got a clean header in it because it was by himself.
Yeah.
So obviously it was smart and it did work, and then Martinelli scored. He redeemed himself. But yeah, I think overall it's good to add something for the team to think about because last season it was near post, in swinger, near post. But this was my, this was going away and then further away, and it's a good dimension because last season we were just going party
Near
near
post,
post,
part of
real near
Leicester.
post.
Yeah.
That's what we did, and we've never seen back post and then bring it back in. So yeah, it was good, and it's good to add a different way to score because it doesn't hurt at all.
Yeah, and it was kind of ironic because you know what? Somebody who I felt had a really good game under the radar, Aaron Ramsdale. His hit mobility is back, ladies and gentlemen. His passing range is back. Some of those passes, the early out balls, when we talk about kind of this situation in the press evasion where it was William Saliba, number one was doing this quite a bit, guys. The early out balls to Martinelli, the early out balls to Saka. It's clearly a tactic that we work on, and we know about this. We've highlighted it in the past, but it was really nice to see. But just really quickly kind of moving on because it's getting to the point and a half where we have to talk about the last 5 minutes and really the breakdown that basically happened. But Aaron Ramsdale makes important save at the 42nd minute with the Edouard chance. So really quickly, Eze off a free kick. We're being really aggressive, but I think we give up a free kick and they make a quick switch out to Anderson on the right-hand side who heads across the face of goal to an open Edouard. And Ramsdale is super smart to that save, kind of employing some of the tactics that we use in terms of cross-field balls and then quick switches across the face of goal. But for you guys, did you guys feel that it was really a first 30-minute kind of situation, or did you feel really on rewatching it that they closed the half well, but for the most part we dominated that first half? Because I came away thinking it was the first 25 minutes, but then I looked on the rewatch. Really, it wasn't until the 40th minute where I started to see that Palace began to get a lot of possession. I felt as though that Arsenal were quite strong up until the 40th minute. And we even rode the storm after that Ramsdale early pressing point around the 33rd minute. And we still had some quality chances in the final third. But after that, Palace did get on top. And I think that we allowed their big space runners to run. But I wanted to get your thoughts in the last 5 minutes of the half and whether or not you're worried that that becomes something moving forward in away days. I was very proud of the fact that we managed to close that out. I felt we lost so many games last season from our endeavor in the first 5 minutes preceding the half and then after the half. And we'll talk about the second half because Ramsdale makes a smart save in the 50th minute once again. But I'll go to Curran first. What do you think?
Now go to Chris first. Go to Chris first.
Okay, sure. I'll
Go
go
to
to Chris
Chris.
first. Chris, what do you think goes wrong in the last 5 to 10 minutes of the half, essentially?
Yeah, last 10 minutes they had like 60% possession or something.
Yeah.
So I think we just relinquished control. I don't know. Obviously, some people say Arteta wants to fall back and test the mid block, and I think no matter how much you love defending, unless you're Simeone or Mourinho, you're not just gonna relinquish control. Like we saw in the All or Nothing that he tells them, "Don't. Why are you leaving the ball? Like take control of the ball, dominate possession, because it's easier to defend with the ball than without." So yeah, I don't think it's instruction, but I just think to be like rude, like some players are just pussies, and once they started getting contested more, they didn't want the ball at all. And obviously Ramsdale made a mistake, but he still kept doing the same things the whole game, so it didn't affect him. People were blaming him for obviously it gave Palace some oomph, like some confidence. The fans started getting louder, and yeah, it gave them some confidence. But 5 minutes later, Ramsdale did the same thing, played out from the back, tried to dribble past the striker. So he kept doing the same things. So it wasn't about Ramsdale. It was about like Saliba kept doing the same things. Gabriel wasn't as technically secure as I wanted him to be. But once Saliba passed into Partey, when he turned and faced, there was one option between the lines. Jesus and Ødegaard weren't showing as much between the line. More so Ødegaard because he did it for pretty much 90 minutes, but they weren't showing between the lines. And once you do that, there's only a limited place where you can pass, and it's sideways or backwards. So
Yeah,
it killed the
and I
progression.
think when you have a look, right, there's different ways that we can kind of break the press, right? And in those last 5 minutes, I felt that Zaha and Andre Ayew were coming inside a lot more. They weren't having as much joy out wide, and when they did come inside, they would release their outlets a little bit more, and so they got involved in play. And that's something that they weren't doing kind of in the first 35 minutes. And I think Zaha got frustrated by the job that we were doing defensively on him, and he started to come inside. And I think that hurt us. It offered a way for Palace to get out. And I agree. I don't think Odegaard and his application was very good. He didn't release quick enough. I felt that he was poor on his weak foot. He had a chance that we'll talk about in the second half where it was a glaring chance. But guys, even in the first half, there was an opportunity with some really good play from Granit Xhaka, and we're off, and he's at the top of the box, and he has an opportunity to release. He doesn't do it quite as much, and that shot gets blocked. But in general, I felt that he didn't answer some of the allegations that we essentially had. I really hope that we would see a different home and away performance, really, but he still was poor technically in contact. He still didn't release as quickly, and there was still some poor right foot or weak foot, I should say, decision making that he did. But one thing to kind of close the half, and I'll go to Curran for you, mate, to give your idea on why things broke down in that last 5 to 10 minutes. But I think one thing that I really saw quite clearly was we kind of allowed their big space runners to run. Really simply, we allowed Zaha and we allowed Andre Ayew, we allowed Schlupp of all people to run through the midfield a little bit too quick, and we didn't control the same thrust. I didn't see Zinchenko as wide as I did at the beginning of the half. I thought he was tiring, and that continued well into the second half. I felt that there was a change that we needed to do, but that's more second half stories. But for you and your perspective, where do you think the issue kind of lies with the last 5 to 10 minutes?
I mean, there's three things for me. The first is I feel like we not slacked off, but we sort of we retreated in our press a bit. I don't feel like we were going at them as high. I think Ødegaard, like I know we carp on about him a lot, but I feel like Ødegaard didn't really understand his role in that press. I feel like Martinelli and Jesus were the pressers, and I don't feel like because he's used to having that second man role where he just runs at the man off the top man. I feel like he got a bit lost and a bit confused. And I feel like we slacked off the press a bit in that way. And I think in the second half, which we'll get into, which is why we reverted to Ødegaard being the second man in the press because he just felt lost. I think that was one factor. So they were getting through, and as you said, they were running at us a bit more. I feel like in terms of not tiring, but I felt like we kind of just. I don't know whether it was the crowd getting to the team or whether it was that turning point, the Ramsdale flashpoint, but it wasn't. I feel like a lot of people are blaming Ramsdale, but it wasn't. Ramsdale kept doing Ramsdale things. It was the other team. It was the team's response to the Ramsdale situation, which was annoying me. I feel like, especially like if you look at Zinchenko, Ødegaard, Xhaka, I feel like they weren't showing for the ball, as you mentioned before, as easily as they were in the first half, and I feel like they were passing lanes cut off because I feel like it's a combination of Palace rejuvenated, sort of pressing a bit harder. I think Zaha got a bit higher on Ben White, and then we had Edouard basically pressing on Ødegaard because Ødegaard was trying to drop in, and they were basically sitting him on Ødegaard. And if you look at how that manifested, it means that there was no lanes for us to get out, and it meant that Partey was sort of going this tiki-taka sort of short passing and get hot potato ball. And lastly, I feel like if you look at how deep we were, I don't know if you guys noticed this. We wasn't that we were just like, okay, we weren't dominating the ball, but at least we were keeping them at half. We retreated. Like Jesus was showing at sometimes at like in Xhaka areas. You know what I mean? Like he was in the 3 at times. He was so deep that it meant that we didn't really have that outlet long. And this is why I feel like if I'm Mikel, after 60 minutes, I need Tierney and I need Eddie. These are my two main reasons why. We'll get into the second half, but I feel like at this moment in time, we need the outlet to stretch, and we need the width to stretch the pitch wide. So you need to stretch to copy Pep. You need to stretch the pitch wide and long. So like at this point in time, we need to have the ability to change mid-game. I feel like Mikel wasted a bit too long with his subs. But in terms of what the problems were, those were the problems. We weren't keeping the ball wide enough. We weren't keeping the ball long enough, and we were retracted in our own half.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it leads us into really the second half, guys, because I think much of the same problems continued. Once again, I felt as the half kind of went on, we kind of allowed Palace to keep on the front foot. We didn't really engage much in the press. Again, I thought Saliba authoritative, just an absolute beast in terms of progression, but also recovery pace. But really, the biggest issues was I felt IU grew into the game. And at parts, I think it was because Zinchenko tired. It's worth mentioning, guys, that Zinchenko starts slow, even for City historically. If you look back, in terms of his best performances. Zinchenko's a player that takes a while to get going. He needs a little bit of games to get cooking. And I felt that was really the case. You could really see that he started to tire a little bit. IU started winning the ball. And then once that happened, we lost the thrust on the left-hand side. Martinelli, who was coming inside and involved quite a bit, became quite isolated. I think when you went up the pitch, we weren't keeping the ball as much. When Partey did get the ball, I don't think he was a really good or did much in terms of progressing the ball. Not that was necessarily his fault. I don't think there was options, but at the same token, we found it tough to get out, and the game was screaming for an Eddie and Nketiah to come back. I was yelling in group chats. I think we need to bring on Eddie, move Gabriel Jesus out wide, and get Saka inside. That was the rotation I really wanted. Then add Kieran for a little bit of thrust on the left. But I think the big talking point that I'll ask is really in the 50th minute. I don't want to skip over it. Ramsdale makes a phenomenal save. Zaha comes inside. He becomes a release outlet to them, sends Eze through on goal, and Eze 1v1 with Ramsdale. And that's a big save at the 50th minute mark. Once again, 1-0. I've said it, 42nd and 50th minute, Aaron Ramsdale makes, in my opinion, match-winning saves, because if they score either side of the half, at that point in time, I think Selhurst Park is very, very different. So I'll go quickly to I'll go back to Curran really quickly. What did you make of those Aaron Ramsdale saves and the performance?
First of all, if you look at that Eze chance, they sliced through us. That ball was unbelievable. If you look at how they sliced through our defense, I mean, it was basically on a plate for him. It was harder for him to miss, but Aaron makes himself big. He gives himself the best opportunity, and he doesn't rush off his line. If you read John Harrison, he always says you have to be composed in these one-on-ones, and that's why Alisson is so good. He doesn't rush out. He stays on his line, not on his line, but he stays back and he holds and makes the striker make a decision. And it was very good in terms of his positioning and his awareness of what to do. He didn't go crazy. I know there's been times when he sort of ran out and sort of gone like he's gone massively big and sort of just tried to make a as big as possible. He's put doubt in the striker's mind, and that's what's basically forced that save. So that was great. I think the second one, I mean, Edward, I don't know, I don't know what his header was, but that was it was a it was a very very good save in terms of just reaction wise. There's not much more to say than that, but in terms of what Aaron brings to us, and we'll say it, when we talk about when we look at the All or Nothing documentaries that we've all done reactions for, George said, and I'm tending to agree with him. He is a captain. He steps up in big moments. He steps up and he shows for the ball when he's needed in build up. He is someone that you can count on not to hide, and he didn't hide. He stood up and he was there. So fair play to the mate.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to move on to Gabriel Jesus because that really kind of leads us in basically the second goal, in which when you have a look at it, sure it was excellent in terms of his endeavor. I thought Gabriel Jesus really he set the tone a lot with his off the ball pressing, and he's just a live wire. It's been kind of said in the past in terms of what he's doing, but his energy is really infectious. What he does is he closed down Mark Wahey and forces him into a mistake once again. Mark Wahey, not normally known for that kind of thing, and look, he's down his bike on the right hand side, and it leaves Odegaard in space. And there's really not much that I really want to say down there because I feel like we're going to get I'm going to be accused of an agenda, but uh, right there, he just doesn't pull the trigger. There's not much else to say there. I think he has to do better in those positions. But I kind of wanted to get Chris's thoughts overall on Gabby Jesus because we know where Odegaard faltered there, but it's Gabriel Jesus's infectious energy to do that. That's a lost cause, by the way. It was a long, hopeful ball into the channel that Mark Guehi has to defend, but Gabriel Jesus doesn't. He doesn't give up. He's constantly all over Guehi, and that's what wins him the opportunity to get the ball off him and then set Odegaard free inside the box. What did you make of Gabriel Jesus and his general performance across the 90 minutes? Well, not 90, but I guess the 80 minutes that he was on the pitch.
Yeah, his pressing did a lot for us. Obviously, his intensity was unexpected. It was actually it caught them by surprise. Weirdly, because watching us in pre-season, he was like that every single game. But his intensity just I don't know what he did to Guehi. Like I've watched him for years and I've never seen him quite bad indoors because maybe you have a bad game on the ball, but
Mm.
indoors he's never like this. So it was very weird to see. But yeah, obviously that chance was incredible. Down the byline, he goes past one player, puts it in. Obviously, we know what happened, but we should have scored from that. Same thing, Guehi, he went past Guehi for the chance for Martinelli's goal as well. He nutmegged Guehi there. I think he had a good game. Um, Obviously, I think the end product wasn't there. He didn't take one shot all game. So the end product definitely wasn't there. But off the ball, I think he was very good. His pressing helped at times where they realised that a ball over the top will just kill all our pressure. But it did help because Guehi was poor on the ball. Obviously, Anderson had a great game. But Mitchell and Guehi, surprisingly, didn't have good games. Anderson's the only one in their defence that had a good game. And then he hurt the core as well because the core is essentially a watered down version of Partey's first game at six for us. So he's not positioning aware as much. So when a guy like Jesus just goes near him, he leaves gaps, he moves, he leaves gaps. So yeah, I think it was a good game overall. I think he could have done a lot more, especially with end product, but in general play, I think it was actually very good.
Yeah, and I think look, the tone for me, guys, I think by the 65th minute, that's a time where I look for subs personally as a coach. So the biggest thing is I think Mikel deserves some criticism here because not only game state, but everyone could physically see us kind of falter in the middle of the park, and it wasn't at the back line because we were very physical at the back line, and even from the front, I still felt although people weren't involved, Saka and Jesus were running. They were still being dangerous on the few opportunities that they received. The problem was that those opportunities were few and far between, and I felt that we were physically very weak in the middle of the park, and especially from the 65th minute on, we really needed something, and I think the substitute should have come a lot earlier. I don't know what Mikel was waiting for. I'll be honest with you. I felt that was something that he can learn to improve on. And the KT switch was something I was wanting to do because Zinchenko was losing his battle with Andre Ayew. And, additionally, I also wanted Eddie Nketiah. I talked about it earlier in the stream. I felt we lacked something in the middle of the park. And so what I wanted to get Saka and Eddie more on the ball inside, who are both more physical players, especially since we don't have Emile Smith Rowe fit. We needed two options in the middle of the park to receive deep, and Eddie does that for you immensely. And I wanted to get both of your guys' thoughts on whether or not the substitutes were um, or were they done well? Like, was it okay to wait at the 80th minute? I felt as though, especially Eddie Nketiah, at the very least, if you didn't want Kieran because you felt he was unfit, then Eddie Nketiah had to come on a lot sooner. Curran, what did you make of the substitutes? Were they late, earlier, or on time?
They were out there for me. It depends on what you're gonna bring on. For me, if you look at that bench, it's not very strong. But for me, it was too early for none of them. You can't really call it any of these too early. It was too late for Kieran for sure. I think Zinchenko had an excellent 35 minutes to 40 minutes, but with 5 subs, you've got to be able to make that sub at half time. You've got to say, look, we're struggling. We need Kieran, unless there's something he's really just not fit. But if what is it? I can't even remember. What time did he come on? It was like 60,
It was
70,
83rd, then we scored in the 85th.
Yeah, it was in the 83rd minute. Like
Was
I
it?
don't I
Yeah,
don't
no.
buy
What
the
did I say?
idea
It's
that it was injury.
83rd.
Yeah.
No, I mean it wasn't very long. He was on the pitch, and if you look at where we bring him on, he was so electric in that last 7-8 minutes that you needed that. As I said it before, it's the width. You need the width. You need someone to stay.
Sorry, I think
We found one, right?
we've lost the audio. Yeah. Well, here I'll quickly answer this because
Yep.
this was given to me. I've said it before earlier in
Yeah.
this mate. Really quickly is that I would have brought on Eddie Nketiah. I would have moved Gabriel Jesus out wide to the right wing, and I would have had Saka inside as that 10 to receive for Martin Odegaard, who has a way better chance at receiving under contact. That was something that we lacked. We lacked the connect, and I felt that Gabriel Jesus was having a great game. And in fact, that Guehi Mitchell lane was something that he was having tons of joy on earlier in the game. So why not lean into that? That was the change I was looking for. And then when you have Eddie Nketiah as your striker, he's somebody that likes to drop deep in the left half space. So that absolutely would have made both Nketiah and Saka your inside receivers in the middle third. That would have absolutely helped us. That was the major change I would have seen a lot earlier into the game. And then Kieran, look, if you're telling me it was fitness, then fair play. But regardless, I think at the 75th minute, an extra 10 minutes isn't going to hamper you. And I can tell you that physically and fitness wise, 15 versus 10 minutes is not a difference at all. So for me, that kind of is the difference in terms of how I would change things, both wide introductions, but also adding two players ball to feet in the middle of the park. But yeah, sorry, Kern, I wanted to go to you.
Yeah, sorry, no, I don't know what happened there, but for me, I think not just having Eddie as an option to drop deep, but having him available to give you that outlet, especially when we were being pushed back in that second half at the beginning of around the 45th to the 60th minute. Having him brought on in that period at some point, he's fit. Like he's done the preseason. He was fit, but having him able to run the channels, make sure you have an out ball, make sure that you can have someone getting out your own half when they were pressing in. I thought that would have been that. I thought that should have been something that was done a lot earlier. And Alex is completely right. I mean, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it after we discuss this. I mean, in terms of Arteta and his subs, I would have thought there were 5 subs, and I hope this is the case because when we had the FA Cup run, he was very good at managing his subs. I don't know if you guys remember the water breaks and the subs. He was much better. I hope that it was just because our bench was so weak that he didn't want to bring on, for example, a Reece or a Pepe or someone like this, and that was the reason. But I really hope, and I want to ask you guys as well, what do you guys think of Michel's substitution policy? Because I hope that as time progresses and we get our players back that aren't fit, it will change.
So some of it is fitness related, absolutely. But really quickly, some of it is a criticism. Like ultimately, it's going to be a weakness. Is it something that lasts forever? No. Like, I think he does change this. He's still a very young manager, but ultimately it's a weakness that Eddie didn't come on a lot earlier. It's something I was screaming for. I've said kind of in the stream with people asking, "How do you change the midfield dynamics?" Eddie did. And by the way, when Kieran and Eddie both came on, the game changed. And that's really the proof in the pudding for me ultimately. Kieran wins a header high and wide very well. And then Eddie's drop deep layoff is really what starts that build up move if you go back and you watch it. Then Eddie receives in between the lines after Kieran offers that high wide option. And then after that, he spins, releases Saka into space, and boom, you've got a qualitative advantage against Tyreek Mitchell. And it's just that's why we got the goal in the second half immediately with those two coming on. And I felt as though you saw the reasons how you could change the game with that sub. It was really clear in the first 2 minutes we changed. And so that was really the biggest thing for me. I'm going to pose this question to Chris. Do you think the subs are an attempt to get the team to suffer a bit more? I don't know if that's exactly how I see it, but I'll pose it because it's a worthy question.
I think it was kind of poor. It was too late. Like, in the 55th minute, I was already screaming like, in group
Yeah,
chats on the timeline, take him off, take off Odegaard, bring on Nketiah. I said even bring on Pepe. Like, just bring on someone to be present. Let's feel some presence. Because at that point, it was that we were being Palace with 10 men. So yeah, I would have taken him off for Nketiah, put Jesus on the right wing because he was even causing trouble whenever he went out there to Mitchell. And Nketiah obviously receives between the line as well. But he would have leaned on Anderson a bit more. He would have dragged him out of position a bit more because Jesus drifts a bit more to the right hand side, which was hurting Guehi, but he would have hurt, Nketiah would have hurt Anderson, who was having a great game, a bit more. So yeah, do I think he delayed it to get people to suffer? I'm not sure because why would he risk losing the game, knowing it's the first game of the season, knowing how much losing the first game can affect our mentality and the narrative around the game? Like he said, the narrative killed us last season. Obviously, the team stayed together, the players kept believing, but losing the first game in front of everybody again will just be so detrimental to him. So
yeah,
I don't think it was to suffer. I just think even Vieira made it sub late. Like I was saying, both of them they
yeah.
left their attackers till the last 7 minutes of the game. Why? Vieira should have noticed that Zinchenko was struggling. We didn't bring on Tierney yet. Use that, bring on Malcolm for the last 20 minutes. And we should have brought on Nketiah for the last. I said in the 55th minute we should have taken off early, but if he wasn't going to do early, like 65th minute at least, he should have been on the pitch.
Yeah, and what's nice is now we can talk in terms of what went wrong for some people. We can kind of talk broadly about the game, and I think this is where I'm at with it too, Chris. I mean, you mentioned managers can have ring rust as well, not just players, by the way. And some of that is feel for the game that they're going to gain as they just get back into the thick of things. And like Yo-Yo, I agree. Like no one's judging harshly, but we have to talk about the negatives. I can't just be all positive all the time because there's areas to improve. I think in general, one thing that I was really happy about was the press that we saw from preseason was back, and it was back with a vengeance. And I think it gave you a tangible win. By the way, Palace haven't lost since February. This is not a bad team. And really, Palace is everybody's arguably outside the top six favorite pick. So for me, from a narrative win point, so just to kind of summarize, I thought that this game was excellent for narrative. We got our away day tones on the right mark. We got our press on the right mark. There was parts of the game I think we could manage to control a bit better, absolutely. But in general, I felt that the team was very vertical, and that was something that I didn't see last season. We did have opportunities with Jesus, particularly turning on that gas pedal, upping the tempo. So I was really, really happy to see that. And just generally, we got a clean sheet away at Palace. Not many teams are going to be able to do that.
It's
Palace,
our first time since 2013. And
yeah,
Arteta scored that day, which is incredible. But yeah, I think it was great for narrative and it was great for like the mentality. Like I don't remember the last time I just relaxed the whole weekend knowing that we already won. Like we won, everyone chilled. Like you just watch every game, not thinking, oh, if we lose, they're above us. If they win, they're above us. Da, da, da. So what? Only Spurs are above us because of goal difference. But yeah, I think it was a very good performance overall. And obviously, we're nitpicking a bit because we did win 2-0 versus Palace. They're one of the best home teams in the league. But I
And they
do
don't
think,
give up goals too, right, Chris? Like, I know even in the prediction you debated even guessing a 4-1.
yeah, I was like,
So they have a
I think
great defensive record.
they don't. They top four defense at home. They're a top four
Yeah.
defense at home. Like they don't concede like that. So me predicting 4-1 was, I know we're gonna create. Are we gonna be clinical? And we weren't. It could have easily been four, easily, but we weren't clinical. So yeah, and I prefer the 2-0 to my 4-1 score because we didn't concede it. Clean sheets are great because Ramsdale we know would be very angry without the clean sheet. So yeah, I think it was actually very good.
No, it was happy days, and I'm gonna move off to Curran. Quick summary of the game, mate, in terms of what you felt like this did in narrative terms, and how it sets us up for a season. Because by the way, some would argue this is our toughest game in the next 5 or 6. So I think it was very important to win and very important to get us off on the right foot, particularly away. I think it's amazing that we've got our away duck at one of the hardest away grounds, by the way, in the league, and to a team, by the way, that have picked up the most points against the top 6, outside the top 6. So, what do you make of the game in general, Curran?
So I think just generally the first thing you have to talk about is Saliba. He's playing for Arsenal. He's doing so well for Arsenal. There was like every time he goes in for a tackle, you don't doubt him. The scissor tackles, the covering for Ben when Ben did get beat, which wasn't much. Ben did very well out wide. I'm very very happy with Ben. I think one of our major criticisms is of Ben is sometimes when he's out wide, he can sometimes get done in out wide when he's defending, and he did very well against Wolf. He did very very well against Wolf, so that was another positive. But Saliba, for me, his ability to cover. The ability to pick a pass, calmness, to find people, calmness off the ball, the way he managed the line as well, which are not a lot of people talking about. He managed the line. It wasn't just Gabriel. He managed the line on when we were defending. So he was so good. And then obviously Jesus, the pressing, the tricky feet, the ability to just put himself about, the mentality he brought to that front line of the press. Martinelli, the goal, and then you have his ability just to he feels like I feel like he's growing in confidence a lot. And in terms of other players, we get accused of the Erdegaard stuff, but anyone could see it wasn't his best game. I'd really hope that he would be able to shut some people up because I want him to do really well. I feel like if he's going to be our captain, he's going to be that guy. We need him to show as on the pitch that he is going to be able to step up when we need him, but he didn't today. On Friday. Look, the the main things for me is I feel like we need to control games better. I think we have to find a way to get from minute 30 to minute 60 or 70 or 80 and not be sort of, on the back foot, just letting teams take control of us. Because it's happened last season a lot and it's going to happen again this season. And we need to figure out a way to fix that. I think Tierney changes a lot of that. I think Eddie changes a lot of that because it offers a lot of different options in terms of being able to either go long or being able to stretch the pitch in both axes. So I think that's the major thing for me. Control, but some really good performances and some really good signs for the rest of the season. Let's not get carried away. We're not going to be title contenders, I don't think, but some really, really good signs. Really good signs in terms of just setting a tone, not letting the past of Brentford last season or Palace last season get to us. Not letting all the stuff off the pitch get to us.
Mm.
Just doing the stuff on the pitch and moving on to next week.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, really kind of to round it off, ultimately, we made it a big running team, and I think that ultimately this is the type of team we struggle the most against as a team. And I think, but one thing I will say, Kieran Tierney, Emil Smith Rowe, Vieira, all three are major additions to both midfield, but also the thrust that we will get, that were injured and that were unavailable. So it's really difficult to say whether or not that's going to be a problem long term. I'm not worried about it long term. In fact, I really liked how when we brought on the players that we wanted to, the game changed. I know it was for 5 minutes, but the game did change. We got control back after Kieran Tierney and Eddie Nketiah were introduced. We just got to learn to do that a little bit earlier. So definitely some stuff to improve, but ultimately a lot of really cool, nice things to see. I really like the fact that we won away at Selhurst Park. That was a game. This, along with Newcastle, Everton, Brighton, these are teams that we struggle historically against. And, to go out there to get the win, that was fairly comfortable because, despite for us losing control, by the way, we only really gave up two or three big chances in the match. And so I felt as though the biggest thing that we probably want to see as a group of fans is a little bit more control and territory. Because I still think that the chances that we let loose weren't horrible. There was still three or four chances, but I don't think it was open season as it has been in the past. So really good, and of course William Saliba. I will end as kind of Saliba season. It was one of my favorite things to see. Look, I've been a very big supporter of the man, and I think he showed us a lot, but we also haven't seen a lot. I think there's a lot to see in terms of him stepping into midfield that we have yet to see. So I think that we will leave it there. Thank you so much for everybody in the comments for sticking with us and catching us. We will definitely be having a bunch of videos out for you guys, including some of the all or nothing reactions. I encourage everyone to have a look and stay open for those because they are funny. I call everybody my son. Curran seems to like that. But guys, thank you so much again. I'm going to shout out the socials once again. You can find us at BOP Footy on Twitter. Of course, all the boys' socials down below at GeorgeV_AFC. You can find Chris at CKFTBL. That's at CK Football. And of course, Curran, you can find him at Curran BOP. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. You hit that bell for notifications so you know when we do, in fact, upload. And we will definitely be catching you guys on the next one. So keep your eyes peeled. We got some more stuff coming up. Thank you so much, and have a good night, guys.
Peace.